Hello everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to my channel, Sister Wives Uncovered. Today we're exploring some explosive facts that completely redo everything people thought they knew about Cody Brown's family. One of the wives has finally spoken out, and what she said is rewriting everything that we thought we knew. So let's dive in. This season, the emotional burden of the show falls on Meri. She's entering into her truth like never before, open, honest, and unfiltered. For years, fans had been speculating about the inner dysfunction of the Brown family, and now those suspicions are being verified by the very individuals who experienced it. Let's discuss Robin for a minute. She came into the family professing sisterhood and bonding, but she brought control, separation, and secrecy. Although she positioned herself as the outsider yearning for unity, it is obvious now that her arrival destroyed more than it repaired. And Cody, he's acting like a man lost in his own fantasy, having emotional tantrums when things don't happen his way. Sometimes he acts more like an attention-starved child than a husband of a plural family. It's not sad, it's telling. One of the most eye-opening times this season was discovering that Meri never wanted the divorce. It wasn't her idea. She attempted for years to salvage the relationship, hoping words and time would change him. But she eventually accepted that it was never going to work, because Cody had already made his mind up. He was the one advocating for the dissolution. Worse yet, he fabricated a bald-faced lie, implying they were still close, something Meri outright rejected. That sort of dishonesty is not merely careless, it's manipulative. It's textbook narcissistic behavior, denying accountability, twisting reality, and blaming others for your own emotional shortcomings. We're seeing the same disturbing pattern in how he treats his children. The moment they stop reflecting him, he pulls away. It's not love, it's control. And the damage is real. Meri is still coming to terms with the depth of that betrayal, especially when it comes to Robin. While she doesn't think Robin directly pushed for the divorce, others do. The emotional manipulation ran deep, and the silence around it made it worse. Cody demonstrates a staggering double standard. He protects his intimacy with Robin intensely, but nonchalantly shares intimate information about Meri, pushing emotional boundaries without remorse. Robin only needs to get wind that he was seeking a younger bride, and she'd blow. And don't expect him to resist it, though, more for ego and the show than anything genuine. He may still have a need for attention, but capable, self-sufficient women won't be buying what he's selling anymore. Even Robin's grievances are disintegrating. She used to say she didn't know a man who divorced a wife simply to adopt her children, but Cody's own dad did just that. It's not hypocrisy, it's rewriting history in the moment. Meri's silence has officially ended, and with it, the illusion that everything in the Brown family was functioning. She's telling her story now, and it's powerful. The signs of emotional abuse are clear: isolation, blame, control. But she's finally free. She looks healthier and stronger because she's no longer pretending. The catfishing scandal, her attempts to reach out to the kids, her attempts to be heard, they were all brushed off. Cody underestimated her. He believed she'd keep quiet. But she didn't. And now the true damage to his ego is rearing its ugly head. All the drams, birthday parties, and emotional tantrums are mere distractions. Beneath all of it lies a sinking foundation. But if the women continue to speak out, perhaps reality will reveal itself at last. And the show will change from performance to authenticity. And what of the myth that sister wives are supportive of one another like a bonded unit? Christine asked Robin one time if she would be willing to babysit her children, attempting to establish that support. But Robin became cold and defensive. Cody bowed his head, quiet. He said nothing, and since then the subject was avoided. Cody repeatedly explains to Christine, Janelle, and Meri that they are abusing Robin, but he never expects the same of Robin. Why can one wife stay apart? Why are her kids a taboo for the rest of the family? These are the things that need to be explained. And if you think it's all over drama-wise, think again. What's next could end up shaking everything all over again. In theory, the Brown family is meant to be a single entity, co-parenting, sharing the responsibilities, and raising the kids together. That is what they preach to viewers. In practice, however, things look very different. Robin's decision to keep her children apart from the rest of the family blatantly defies this model of communal parenting. Robin has insisted that her children were never really welcomed or accepted by the other wives and kids. But if she's the one making them isolate, how are they ever going to bond? Isolation doesn't create connection, it inhibits it. And while she's mentioned the other children were rough or too wild, which could possibly be forgiven with the size of the family, her style has been more reserved and protective than the other wives. That in itself isn't necessarily bad, but when you're marrying into a plural family, those discrepancies need to be addressed and negotiated openly, not skirted or evaded. Instead, what we've seen is Robin choosing outside help, nannies, family members, instead of leaning on her sister wives. Christine, for example, was hurt when Robin never asked her for help, especially since her own children are close in age to Robin's youngest. Christine has always enjoyed helping with the kids and comes from a background where sister wives support each other. To be excluded from that role felt personal. And maybe it was. There's tense silence around this problem, and it seems like there's a tacit agreement to never mention it on television. But the viewers can sense it. Robin's comfort with space, combined with Cody's favoritism, has created colossal cracks in the family's foundation. Rather than constructing bridges between the wives and children, Robin and Cody have constructed walls. And it's not only emotional distance, it's physical too. Robin's children are seldom present at family gatherings. They weren't there at Gwen's party. They didn't attend when Kelty and Tony came over. It's a trend that's difficult to ignore. It even seems as though Cody and Robin don't want their children to be a part of the larger family setup. For if they were, the kids might begin to see the reality that they never were hated, that perhaps they were deceived. Separating the kids serves to keep a story going, that Robin and her kids are victims of rejection. If, however, the kids had spent time with the rest of the family and were befriended, that story would crumble. And perhaps that's the true fear. Not rejection, but discovery. Remember when Aspen skipped Thanksgiving? Robin took it personally and painted it as Aspen just not caring. But that wasn't the truth. The real issue wasn't about a missed holiday. It was about years of strained relationships and unspoken resentment. Robin refused to acknowledge the root of the problem and instead blamed others, a pattern we've seen too many times before. Even gazing at the children's futures reveals a different scenario. Whereas children from the other wives have left home, gone to school, commenced their careers, or entered the military, Robin's kids haven't done the same things. There is the sense of control lingering, like they're kept from living fully as adults. Christine's own mother even came to live with them to assist in childcare because Robin didn't trust the other wives with her children. One decision like that made it clear just how isolated Robin was from the rest of the family. How do you say you are part of a unit when you won't even trust your fellow wives with your children? At the center of all this is a simple yet profound truth. Cody united women with radically different parenting styles, beliefs and expectations, yet never confronted those differences. He assumed they would mesh easily, without drama, and that simply isn't the way real families function, particularly not plural ones, and now we're left with a fractured family, one built on the idea of unity, but held together by secrecy, control, and half-truths. As more of the wives speak out and the kids find their voices, we're seeing that what was once presented as harmony was really just silence. Aspen couldn't keep up with Cody's ever-changing rules, and let's be real, who could? But rather than tell us what's actually going on, Robin keeps secrets from her kids. What's making them mad off camera? There was one moment where Robin's older daughters were interviewed, and it was kind of creepy, like hearing Robin talk through them. The older girl appeared a little more alert, but still very cautious about saying anything that could displease their mother. One could see the fear of disappointing her was genuine. And then there was Aurora, remembering how Gabe would hug her on campus. She smiled while recounting the memory, but Brianna's open-mouthed response spoke volumes. "You're not supposed to say that." Aurora paused in mid-thought, acknowledging she might have stepped across an unwritten boundary. What's surprising is how infrequently we get to see inside Robin's house, or see any substantive interaction between her children and the rest of the family. She's left her home secure, the cameras off limits, and her kids isolated, not only from the show, but from the family as a whole. Rather than building connection, Robin has informed her children a harmful falsehood, that their siblings don't enjoy them, don't want them around. That sort of messaging is profoundly toxic. Consider Aspen and Mitch. They weren't dodging family gatherings, they were holding actual jobs. If Robin really wanted her children to feel included, she could have tried, invited the family over, taken her children to gatherings, or even ceased playing the financial victim and expecting others to fill in the gaps. She didn't. Why? Isolation benefits the story. As long as her children keep their distance, the narrative that they're unwanted holds true. But the reality, no one despised them. They were never shunned. They were merely segregated, intentionally. And it poses a legitimate question. Why don't Robin's grown kids go to these family gatherings on their own? They have cars, they have phones, they can make their own decisions. The reason could be more profound than it appears. Emotional dependence, financial manipulation, fear of getting out of line. It's not a matter of logistics, it's a matter of conditioning. Envision little Ari arriving at a family gathering and unsuspectingly blurting out, "But Mom said you all hate me." That would blow the carefully constructed story in a heartbeat. And Robin can't allow that. In the end, Robin didn't desire integration. She desired separation. That's how she keeps control. And that control includes all facets of the family's public persona. Take the reports of Garrison's funeral, accusations that Robin insisted on sitting up front and center with Cody over Janelle's desires to sit next to her son's father. If that's accurate, it says everything about what's most important to her. This fascination with safety is then used to excuse everything, from keeping the children away to not talking to the other wives. But come on, it's not really about safety. It's about control of the narrative. It's about keeping the children just distant enough that they never do find out the truth, that the door was never closed to them. It was closed around them. If one day Ari, Savannah, and the other children grow up, get in touch, and compare notes, the truth will be impossible to avoid. And Robin and Cody will have only themselves to blame. And then, just when you think it couldn't possibly get worse, Cody says something that leaves you stunned. When his daughter came out as bisexual, he said she wasn't articulate enough about it. Let's be real about this. Homophobic nonsense masquerading as concern. That is not love. That is not acceptance. That is judgment smothered in a pretense of righteousness. And it gets worse. Cody literally said he received a vision from God, instructing him that his duty is to judge and his wife's duty is to love. Translation: God granted me permission to be mean. Meanwhile, Gwen effectively clapped back and said that Robin should have reserved her reaction for the cameras. The hypocrisy writes itself. And now, just when life wasn't crazy enough, there's talk about Christine's daughter landing a new show with Tim Allen. Yes, this family has now turned into a circus. I have to redraw my eyebrows at this point, just flew straight off. For LGBTQ+ viewers, Cody's comments hurt particularly badly. It's bad enough to be hurt by a parent. Another thing altogether to hear your identity described as a bad articulation, because it wasn't good television. This isn't just a family falling apart. It's a cautionary tale about control, ego, secrecy, and emotional manipulation. And as more truths come to light, the real story isn't about a polygamous lifestyle. It's about what happens when love is conditional, loyalty is weaponized, and children are taught to fear connection. So Cody tells us, just love her anyway, like that erases all the judgment that stands behind his words. But here's something to think about. What about God judging him for leaving his kids, passing money around, or being an absolute train wreck of a father? If God's really paying attention, it's maybe Gwen and Leon who have hearts he knows are kind and true. Cody, not so much. Honestly, at this point, it feels like even God looked down at the Brown family and said, "Yeah, I'm not coming back for this mess." And let's not forget, Cody's Mormon upbringing plays a big role in this skewed version of love with conditions. It's no wonder Robin keeps their kids at arm's length. They've been raised to believe that sin is contagious. Whenever Leon's coming out is brought up, the public makes a dash to condemn Meri and canonize Cody's so-called support speech. But let's discuss the reality. Meri silently stood by and took Leon's hand. Sure, she's made poor choices, but Cody, he rambles about how it's my job to love, meanwhile quietly suggesting his child is going to hell. That's not support, something in a Hallmark card disguise. This whole love the sinner, hate the sin cliché is toxic Christian PR. Jesus loved everyone. If you're using faith to justify rejection, then no, you're not actually following Christ. Cody saying God spoke to me isn't some divine revelation. It sounds more like an excuse, or worse, a delusion. It's wild how people like him throw out God told me like it's a free pass for their bad behavior, while the wives are supposed to nod graciously and take it all in. And Robin, she's completely convinced that she's a sort of spiritual prophet now. The atmosphere is more Pinterest witchcraft, less prophet. When someone utters, God told me, they generally mean, I made this choice and needed it to sound divine. Unless they're experiencing actual hallucinations, which, incidentally, has medical consequences, they're just outfitting their own agenda. Yes, there are some ex-Mormons who have explained they prayed and felt led to leave, and hey, that's their path. But when Cody resorts to God said to justify his judgment of his LGBTQ+ children while disregarding all the rest of his flaws, it's obvious that this is about control, not faith. The reality is, Cody's whole modus operandi is a refined take on judge now, love never. He claims he leaves judgment to God, but no one is fooled by that routine. Why is it always the queer children subject to the most divine judgment? Where's that judgment when he's ghosting his own kids or managing the family accounts like an underworld MLM? And let's return to that scene where he said Gwen wasn't articulate enough when she came out. Come on, did he even know what the word articulate means? Or was that just code for, I wish she'd kept it inside so I wouldn't have to deal with it? Classic Cody. Criticize his kids for being authentic while remaining totally oblivious himself. In the end, Cody employs religion as a shield for his behavior, for his ego, and for his failures. Several wives he can't take care of, children he emotionally ditches, and now he's acting like he's the caring, non-judgmental dad just because he didn't publicly denounce his daughter. Please, that ain't support, it's survival PR. Perhaps Cody genuinely thinks this warped interpretation of faith. Perhaps he was raised with the conviction that hate the sin is simply the way love goes. But don't give him a standing ovation for being merely somewhat less terrible than he normally is. And let's be real, if this were an Orthodox Jew or Muslim family, nobody would be applauding the dad as tolerant while subtly judging him for his daughter. The double standard is real. The reality is that Gwen's coming out was brave. It was gorgeous. And Cody's entire God instructed me to love but to judge shtick is nothing more than a means of evading responsibility. Perhaps rather than playing the bad guy on reality television, he can attempt to be a father. But hold on, this just got complicated. Let's discuss the actual reason Cody and Robin employed COVID-19 as their ideal excuse to ghost the rest of the family.